I'm Dr. Howard Sweeney, part of North Shore University Health System, and I've been vitally interested in teaching for years. This morning we're talking about knot tying, an integral important part of arthroscopic surgery. If you cannot tie a knot down successfully and have it hold with good knot security, the surgery will fail. Now, down on the table, we have a model sitting here. This is the base. This is the part that goes on top of it for tying onto. We put that down on the top of the model. There are two little holes in here that screws fit into. They're very important to line up when you put this in. So you push down on it and it clicks in place. Then we take the two screws, put them in the holes, and screw them down. The purpose for this is when you're tying knots, that it's easy to pull anything loose just by the amount of force you're putting on this. So we found it necessary to put a couple of screws in here. If you're a little more gentle, you wouldn't have to do that, but I think this is a good idea. Now, in terms of knot tying, there are a couple basic things. One, we're going to tie using 1/8" line rope, standard rope, and learn to tie the knots with rope first. Then after that, we'll switch to suture or fishing line, but in this case, suture is better because it doesn't stretch like fishing line does. And we'll start out by learning a series of 4 or 5 knots. You do not have to learn hundreds of knots. Get to do a certain number, 3 or 4 or 5, and do them successfully. So I'll put the rope through a eye hook here. And then there are a couple basic principles on every knot. The first thing you do is to move this line back and forth. What that does, push down, let's get it stuck a little more. By this, you know that your suture will move. When it moves, then you can use any type of sliding knot or sliding locking knot. But if this would not move, it just won't move, then you have to shift. You can't use a sliding knot, and you have to switch to the revoscoe knot. The other thing of extreme importance is to place the basic suture post in your left hand. And it needs to be a half to a third as long as the loop line on the opposite side. The basic suture line or post is the one furthest away from the center of the joint, say in a shoulder. It's coming out of the tissue that you put a needle through. The loop post is the one you use to put loops around the basic post. Now, every time that you do this, it makes no difference whether you're right or left-handed. You hold the main post between your thumb and your middle finger. And then you put the loop line next to it. And you make sure that they slide, and you make sure that this one is a third to a half as long as the loop line. Then the first one we're going to do is called a Duncan. The Duncan's a very popular knot, been around for a long time, and it's not very complicated. So we take the loop line and take it over my thumb, right here. It goes over my thumb, and I use my index finger to hold that in place. Then we're going to put 4 loops around the 2 posts in this fashion. And you notice I'm using my index finger to hold them down in place. Now, I use 4. Some people use 3. There are people who use 2. You can get into arguments about which way, but the basic design was originally the 4. Then you pull it off of your thumb, hold it out in this direction, and take the loop line and go through that and pull it down. Now when you pull that down, you can get the slack out by pulling up on the loop line. And then you slide this down. You do not pull it down in this fashion, because sometimes suture acts like a jiggly saw and it'll actually cut through tissue. So you use your knot pusher to push this down and put it down like that. Now, another basic principle, there is no sliding knot and no sliding locking knot that will stay put by itself. It requires that you put half hitches on top of this. And you use reverse half hitches and reverse posts. The most important thing is about changing the posts. Now I'm going to go ahead and describe another knot at the same time here, and I call it the Harriman knot, after Dr. Harriman, who wrote the papers on this. And what you say to yourself now, I'm going to put a Harriman on top of every knot that I use because it locks down the original knot, and it increases the strength of the knot by 100%. So you put 3 unders on, or you put 3 overs. Now the under I put underneath here, and I bring it through, and I slide this down nice and tight. Then I put another under on, and here we go through what we call knot flipping. And what you do is to pull the post, the original post, straight up and pull down on the loop line, and now you see the post has changed. Now the post is over in my right hand, and the loop is now changed from an under to an over. Now let me do that over because that's extremely important. So we'll put an under loop on right here. You can see it's an under. Then I pull up on the original post and pull down on the loop line, and now it clicks. You can hear that click inside of a joint. You can also see it and hear it outside the joint. But now the post is not here anymore. It's over here. And this has now become an over. So when I pull that down, that really locks the knot together. It will not slip. The minute you change posts, you can't change the rest of it. Now the next one, I'm going to pull down on the original post and just hold it down, and then I'm going to put another under here in this fashion and take that down. Now we're going to show you the Duncan loop again from a different direction. So we'll put the rope through the eyelet over there, and remember, bring it down so the main post is half to a third as long as the loop line, and hold it between your thumb and middle fingers. And we'll bring the loop line over my thumb and control the loops with my index finger. And we're going to have 4 loops. Then you accentuate holding out the loop that's been over your thumb. Bring the loop line down through that opening. Tighten it down. Take the slack out. Pull up on this line to take the slack out, and then push the Duncan loop down to where it belongs. Now when that's nice and tight, then we're going to put a Harriman on top of it. The Harriman will be 3 unders or 3 overs. This one is 3 unders. So we'll do this, put the first loop down as an under hitch, then we'll put another under on, and then we flip it, because if you didn't flip it, it would still be a slip knot. So I pull up on the original post, pull down on the loop line. This changes to a new post, and the loop has now changed to an over. Then I pull down on the original post, put tension on it, put another under on it, and take that down and tighten it up. And now you have a completed knot. Now the next knot we're going to show is a Tennessee slider, and it is under the category of sliding locking knots. So we have the post as the same way as the previous ones. Then we take an over, we do another over, we bring the post up in between here, like that. Very simple. It's over, over, and back through the first, between the posts here. Then tighten it down, then slide it down. When you get it all the way down here, you pull on the loop line hard, and it locks it. Then, as with any sliding or any sliding locking knot, we put the Harriman on top of it. And you've seen that a couple times before. Now we're going to proceed to tie a Weston knot. The Weston is a sliding locking knot. Originally it was put together by Dr. Weston, who was an OB-GYN man. And the Weston is a series of unders. So I put the post line is here, the loop line is placed under it. So when you look at it between your thumb and your middle finger, the loop line is under the post line. Then you come through between the two loops and take it under the loop post. Then you take it over and put it between the two posts, bring it down, and now it goes over here, and it comes back and goes under the first loop. So basically, you have an under, an under, an under. Everything is an under. Then you slide this down. Now there's one thing that's extremely important. The difficulty with a Weston is to have it lock before you want it to lock. So you don't dress the knot down firmly too hard, because it'll get stuck and stay there, and no matter what you do, it will not proceed down. So the most important thing is to take the loop line and just let it drop down. Just let it hang down, and then pull the knot down to the place you're tying it onto, and then tighten it down, and then make it stay put that way. And that's the secret, once again, is to drop the loop line so it cannot be tangled into the knot or not fasten it down prematurely. That's an extremely important point that will keep you out of a ton of trouble. Now, at the beginning of the Duncan knot, I showed you that you should always take your suture material and make sure it slides. Now, this next knot is called a arthroscopic, and it is used for when you have a suture material that will not slide. So I'm going to put a hemostat on here and lock that down. And see, now this will not slide. Therefore, any sliding knot, any sliding locking knot will be a failure. It just will not work. So the arthroscopic is really a pretty simple knot. It involves multiple hitches and changing posts. And in this case, we're going to put on 2 under hitches, 2 unders. So I'll put one down there, and I'll put the next one down. Now, after studying this knot for a long, long time, one morning about 3 in the morning, it suddenly occurred to me that the next 3 hitches on the arthroscopic are really the same as the Harriman. So instead of putting 3 unders on, we're going to put 3 overs on. So we'll take an over down like that. Then we will put another over on. Excuse me. We have another over. And then I'm going to flip it like that. So this flip, the post is now here. And we'll take that down. Then we pull back on the original post and put another over on. And you can do this one-handed. I'm doing it purposely not one-handed. And now you have a knot that's 100% stronger. It is down tight. It will not slip. And it's easy to remember. All you think to yourself is 2 unders and a Harriman. 2 unders and a Harriman. Then all you got to do is remember the Harriman. It's 3 hitches and you flip the middle one. Now with the fast arthroscopic model, we'll demonstrate putting down a knot inside the model through a clear dome shell. The purpose of this is to be able to look at right exactly what you're doing and look at the video picture of what you're doing. And that gives you mental pictures up in your brain before you do this with an arthroscope. So first of all, we will slide the suture back and forth. That's a routine step. The next thing we do is to put the knot pusher on, which has a 4 end on it. All right. And we'll take that and move it down in the joint. And that's the bottom suture line at that point. So that becomes our post. We want the one down further and furthest away from the center of the joint. And we'll identify the post with a hemostat and also use the hemostat as a weight. And then once again, we'll take a look at this. Now we'll put a Duncan down, and now we put the sutures between my thumb and the middle finger. We'll put a series of loops over the forearm number, and then the final suture is placed through the thumb loop from the top down. You can find this described a number of different ways in knot books. Then we'll take the slack out, and then we'll use the knot pusher to push the knot down. That's extremely important. You do not want you don't want to pull the knot down. You want to push it down. So the suture doesn't have a chance to act like a jiggly saw. Now the knot is all the way down. You pull up on the loop line to make sure it's nice and solid and keep pushing. Some people say you should treat this like you're running a horse, jockeying back and forth to get it down tight. Then you take this back out, and then from here on in it's a matter of putting a harriman on top of it. And you've seen that before. Now I'd like to show you a different way of teaching and using a different method for going through the knots. And this is an introduction to the fast model station for teaching arthroscopy. We have a platform that fastens down a table with suction cups. We have a top that goes over it, a dome. There are two domes. One is opaque, the other one is translucent. You can see through it. We have a light source sitting here. And over here is a camera, the IPEVO camera, aimed down in the joint so you can see the suture material in the center of the joint. It has a little stand here. The wire goes over and attaches to a small computer, laptop computer, and the picture comes up next to you. Then you can test the suture material, make sure it's sliding back and forth, and we can also take a knot pusher, pass it down into the model, and make sure we have no twists, and make sure which line we're on. And you see it coming down here into the joint. Then from that point on, when we know that the suture material is not twisted, it slides, we know what type of knot to use now, a sliding knot or a sliding locking knot, then we can proceed with the knot tying course. Now we're going to tie a knot using the FAST, F-A-S-T, arthroscopic trainer. So you see the suture material in the joint, and we'll move it back and forth to make sure it slides. So you know now you can use a sliding and sliding locking knot. Then we'll slide the knot pusher down the post to make sure it's untwisted. It looks just fine. So now we'll proceed with the Duncan loop. With the Duncan loop, you put the loop over your thumb and then put 4 loops on the 2 posts. And then bring it back and put it through the top of the loop that's over your thumb. Then you dress the knot down and then push it down with a knot pusher in the joint. You see it going down nice and tight. That looks very good. So now it's a matter of putting a harriman half hitches on top of this to make this permanent. So we'll use 3 unders. So we'll put a loop on and push it down the post. And pass point to tighten it up. Then we'll put another under and flip the post. So now the new post is on your right hand and you're dragging it down. And see, I went down just perfect. Now we'll pull it back and put one more under half hitch on and push it down. The left hand is now the post. And now you see the knot is down very nice and looks very good. So now it's just a matter of cutting it loose, cutting the posts off. Very successful.